doing takes and listening is it's easier to just concentrate on playing the song the best you can when you know you're not also having to listen to it to see what you did with what you just did was any good. And it seems like a very small thing, but it makes a huge difference. And it's just a matter of having someone you trust. You know, and you don't have to know that person. You don't have to know exactly what decisions they're going to make, as much as you just trust that they're going to hear and respect what you're doing. And yeah, just having someone, like you said, it's when you're singing, especially sometimes it's nice to just have someone there to let you know that you're on the right track, because you really get down the rabbit hole, so to speak, pretty far. You know, when you've come to this point where you're trying to do the take, you know, get this right. So yeah, I don't know. I guess reiterating what he said.
It's, when when you're looking for your keys, and you're looking and looking and looking, and you can't find them, and you stop looking, and your hand goes right to where they are. That's what being in the studio is kind of like. But I don't know how that applies. It just was an analogy I wanted to use.
Well, if someone you know has lost their keys, it's always easier to help them find them.
It can be helpful to have somebody say, well, did you look in your coat? Because that's where they are, always.
The singing on this record is pretty amazing, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job, Jeff, with the singing. The harmonies, boy, this is pretty amazing. And Mimi sings 5 songs on the new record, which is, I think, that's the most you've sung on a low record. Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe it's because Jeff works with women singers very well.
He pretty much twisted my arm.
I did?
No, I'm
No, I don't think so. It was actually one of the ways that Alan described the record to me when we first talked about working together, is that initially he said that it was pretty much going to be all Mimi, you know, and so it didn't end up that way, but I think there's a really good balance.
That's cool. Well, the record is beautiful. We heard it here in the store this evening over and over again, and it's a record you can listen to over and over and over again. All you guys should be really proud of it. It's quite a record, and looking forward to its release.
It's my favorite thing I've ever been a part of. Honestly, it's so beautiful.
How about that? The record is coming out on the 19th, and at this point, I think you guys are all here, and we'd like to open up the floor to questions. This is now, it turns into a press conference.
Hands up.
Well, we had a gentleman right here in the front.
And a big camera.
Can you just talk about the recording process a little bit and the equipment you used as far as mics and processors and stuff?
No. I can't. I mean, I don't really know that much about that stuff, and I think that's kind of a healthy place for me to be. That's actually a whole nother layer. I could have Tom Schick come out here. He's here. And Mark, who worked on the record, they know. They know. They want to real, I don't know. I'm sure there'll be gear forums and where people will talk about that stuff. I think it's very important, but I also think that that's the kind of thing that if you're paying attention to that, there's really something less than musical happening. I think that you need to pay attention to somebody has to be there paying attention to music, and somebody has to be there paying attention to those things, to the meters and the technology and stuff. And I think it's really difficult when it's the same person, personally, from my experience.
Well, that's why it's so important to have a great engineer when you're doing something.
Oh yeah, well, working with Tom has given me a lot of freedom to not think about that stuff. Enormous trust.
I know nothing about radio equipment either. Nothing.
Nor should you.
Oh, do we have another question? There's a hand in the middle. Aaron?
Your sound has changed a lot over your career, and it tends to seem like it's coming back to sort of where it started, and I was wondering how you decided how you knew what your record was going to sound like? Is it what you're listening to, how you're feeling, how that happens?
That's a good question. Thank you. Honestly, we've never really been very intentional about everything from what kind of song should we write next to what are we doing in the next 6 months, that kind of thing. We've never really been planned too much. And as far as changing styles, I don't know. I think the key was just never really deciding to. It sort of just happened naturally. There's a lot of what we do that I feel like we're doing pretty much exactly the same as we did when we started, and there's parts of my brain that feel like they're still trying to frame the same question over and over again. But I think inevitably we all grow, we change, we hear different things, and we get influenced by things. And I think if you don't overthink it, you don't force anything, it just sort of will happen naturally. And wherever you are at any given point, it's going to be an honest point. And I think maybe that's the common thread, is always trying to be somewhat accurate to who you are. But no, it's never anything conscious. I mean, each record there's a little bit of a new challenge, perhaps. There's times when we've been, specifically said, okay, let's use these instruments instead of these. And, sometimes who you work with is a choice in sound and direction. Instrumentation, just the way what you choose at that juncture can kind of change things too. But I don't know. I'm actually more nervous that we don't change very much. I mean, think about it. 20 years. I mean, even Jefferson Starship. Different after 20 years.
Just change your name to Low Starship.
Jefferson Low.
Low, slow.
Low airplane.
Glow plugs. I don't know. Yeah, it just happens naturally. I mean, I actually think, yeah. I mean, continuing with that, I feel like there could have been even more change that we could have done. I think if we'd have followed technology maybe more, like some of our peers, maybe we would sound different. Because I mean, we're basically doing this. We're playing and making records basically the same way people have been doing it for 40, 50 years. So it's in some ways we haven't changed. Maybe we should have.
I don't think so. I don't know. I kind of like that. Like the
I
band.
like that dubstep.
Well, there's nothing to stop you from trying to do that. That's the point. Do you know, I don't, this wasn't directed at me as a question, but people always, I think they think about musicians and creativity and art as I don't know, I kind of don't think I've ever really met an artist who works where they're coming up with something fully realized and executing it. It just doesn't seem to happen. The analogy that works best for me is I read about Inuit carvers, and they take a piece of ivory or a stone or something, and they just start carving. They don't think. Eventually, they go, oh, it's a walrus, or it's a bobsled, or I don't know. But that's the process. That's just kind of like you kind of use this raw material and different things kind of come out of it, and it's doesn't hurt anybody.
Do records come out that way sometimes? Just like a project where you go in with one thing, or you just go in and it turns into what it turns into? Yeah.
They're all mostly like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have songs, and depending on who you are, I guess the songs are usually what dictates how you go in. You kind of hope you'll be surprised and expect to be.
Yeah. For this record, did you go in with songs like into the studio? You went in, like you said, you were fairly prepared. Did you write for this record? Like,
yeah, I remember just sitting there, oh, what's Tweedy gonna like? He likes C chords.
No, did you really? Like
No.
Jeff going in?
No, we had our tunes, and some of them we'd been playing already, and others we were just working on. We knew we had a limited amount of time, so we actually were a lot more prepared going into this record than we have been for quite a while.
They gave us demos
The
that
11 songs.
were very, very beautiful, really well executed demos that I felt like really didn't need to be changed hardly at all, except maybe just brought a little closer to the listener. You know, that's the way a lot of demos are. They're just a little far away sounding, and that's they really came in prepared this time. I mean, compared to the other times where I wasn't there.
There's a lot of piano on this record. Yeah, like many of the songs are just moving forward with the piano, and also does the piano work as the bass on this record for the most part?
We're kind of tricky. Some songs where the piano seems heavy, the bass is still actually kind of subtly back there. There's a couple songs where there's no bass, and the baritone guitar, the piano's carrying it in the low end. But I don't know. It's kind of a combination thing. Mim wrote more songs on this record, and she writes on the piano, so it's kind of how those songs kind of built up. And
I don't play piano.
don't play. She doesn't really.
Wow.
But Steve here is good, and he kind of took it upon himself to kind of work the piano a little bit and find the right arrangements. It's a pretty subtle instrument, you know. You can really do it bad pretty easily.
How do you write songs on a piano if you don't play the piano?
Just look at it.
It's a player piano.
You argue with it and finally, yeah. Now I don't know. You plunk it out. You find a melody. And
That's cool.
Find the chord you're
Yeah.
hearing.
Wow.
And
Any other questions from the audience? There's a hat being waved way back there.
When you get bogged down in the studio, what